Keisha Dior now. And Keisha Dior calls me in excitement, and she's like, Jude, you won't believe it. I just got off the phone with my accountant. He said we made $1 million. For people that don't know who Keisha Dior is, she was creating a cosmetic business at the time called Dior Cosmetics. I was filming the documentary for it. So when she launched the business, we also put out the documentary. And in 1 year, 12 months, she had made $1 million. In 5 years, I was still struggling to make $20,000 a year. And at that moment, there were two thoughts, two ways I could have gone. I could have gone really bitter, and it was just like, you know what? This is truth. I don't know what I'm doing. Here's another person who's been doing it less time than me and making $1 million. Or I've created value for your client. What was the difference between me and her? Why was she able to make $1 million and I wasn't? And I decided to take the second route. And I went back and learned marketing and sales. So the first 5 years were a complete struggle for me. Because it was just like, yeah, I was hustling, but I didn't really know what I was doing because I didn't understand marketing and sales. I didn't understand the numbers, the economics behind what I was doing.
Today we have the one and only. Should I start like a compa beat or something or anything like that? No, I'm playing. We have the one and only Jude Charles, my brother.
Yeah.
So I know Jude over 10 years.
Has to be.
Over 10 years now.
Yeah.
I met Jude with Courtney, Amir, a couple good guys in the creative space down in Miami, my brothers. Mm-hmm. And Jude, you were still in storytelling. You still were in creating content,
yep.
You know, and all I knew is I came back to Palm Beach, started working. And next thing you know, I just kept on seeing this guy just constantly excelling.
Yeah.
I was like, Jude ain't playing no game. It's that Zoe blood in him or something. My brother, thank you for stopping by, Jude, man.
Thank you for having me, man. It's a long journey that we've been on together, separately, but together at the same time. And yeah, I appreciate it, man.
Let's get into it, man.
Yeah.
So, Jude, I want you to start from the beginning. Of course, how I love to start. Where does it start for you? Born and raised where?
Pompano Beach, Florida. So
the other Haiti.
The other Haiti. The other little Haiti.
Right.
I am the youngest of 10 children. My dad worked as a construction worker. My mom worked at a chair factory. My parents immigrated here in the 80s. My father in the 70s, but my mom came in the 80s. And that's where it starts for me. I was, being the youngest of 10 children, I was always trying to find my voice as a kid. And so I used to write 100-page books. That's where storytelling begins for me. At 8 years old, when I get home from school, I would write 100-page books of what I thought my future life would look like.
Heavy. Do you have any of those?
I still have them. And
I want to buy the royalties to them. I want to buy the rights to them right now.
And it's surprising what I used to write as because I've gone back to read them, and it surprises me what I used to write about as a kid.
How old were you around there?
8 years old, and I used to write about what 28, 30, how like when I get to that age, what I would be doing, what I envisioned doing.
Right.
So like I wrote a book called The Police Life of Jude Charles because that's what I wanted to be growing up as a police officer. I wrote The Baseball Life of Jude Charles. I had just read the Jackie Robinson story.
Wow.
And so I was like, okay, what would it be like if I played baseball? In all, I wrote 11 books. And that's where storytelling really started for me, and I don't know why I got so.
So at 8 years old, you wrote about 10,100 pages. 100? No.
Yeah. I've never calculated it, but pretty much, yeah.
I mean, it's still mind-blowing to me.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do the math on it. Like, this is uncomfortable, Jude.
Yeah.
You guys really had nothing to do? Or you had a,
No, I just wasn't interested. Like, my friends played video games, played sports outside, playing basketball in the street or whatever. I just wasn't interested in that. I don't know.
Is it that you felt like you wanted to know like your purpose already by then, or you already felt like you knew it, or?
Probably. I don't think I knew it, but I do think I was in search of it back then. I didn't know that back then, but like thinking about it now, I think I was in search of where am I going?
Adding on to that, do you believe you searching for your purpose came from watching your siblings live?
No doubt. No doubt.
So powerful.
The brother before me is 6 years older than me. So
Oh, you guys.
So I'm the baby. Yeah. So I'm watching what my siblings are doing. And part of it is I want to do parts of that. The other part is I don't want to do that.
Right.
But how do you, I think for me back then it was like, but how do you take control of that? Because you're a kid. You're under your parents' roof. How do you make sense of that? So I'll fast forward real quick to give you an understanding of why I thought of it, why and how I thought about it. 17 years old in a TV production classroom. And at this point, I know I want to go into broadcasting. It wasn't like running my own company just yet, but broadcasting. I wanted to work at a news station. And the teacher, Mrs. Donnelly, she was a TV production teacher. She taught me everything she knew about video production. And then at the end of that school year, it was my junior year in high school. And she looked at me. I'll never forget May 4th, 2006. She said, Jude, you're really, really talented at video production. You should start a business. I'm the youngest of 10. My parents are Haitian. So, the next thing for me was you go to college. You don't think about starting a business. Right. And on top of that, I didn't have any entrepreneurs in my family. Of course, my parents were hustlers.
I know the feeling.
But not entrepreneurs. And so, I didn't tell her yes or no. I didn't believe it. Like, okay.
You didn't know what it looks like.
I didn't know what it looked like. Following day, May 5th, 2006, Mrs. Donnelly came into the classroom. She handed me a yellow envelope. I was like, what is this? And I look inside of this yellow envelope, and inside were my first set of business cards.
Goosebumps.
It's the only reason.
On that Let me see that, please.
It's the only reason I got started with video production or storytelling in general. But I wanted to fast forward to that story because it's like.
Question, was this your phone number?
It was, yeah.
This lady's no joke.
It was my phone number.
If you can find it.
It was my phone number, the address to my parents' house where I lived. Yeah. And but again, it was that search for what do I do next? But I didn't know how to take control of what I do next.
Did it become real when you saw that?
Oh, no doubt. It became tangible.
Wow. When
she told me you could start a business, again, I didn't understand what that meant. But once she gave me that, it was like, oh, that's all I need. Is business cards.
So let me tell you the funniest thing in the world. So today, people still believe
that's all you need.
The moment they get a business card,
it's real.
They're officially a CEO.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even have to even work and earn money at that point.
Yeah.
I have a set of business cards.
Yeah.
I used to be so angry when a client asked me, could I design their business card for them? I was like, I'm doing that first. Because I know what that battery looks like. When I put this battery pack in your back, of you getting a set of business cards, you officially are the CEO. You're bigger than Bill Gates at this point. You walk into any room and you're giving them a card. And
that's all I used to do. Every event I go to, every person I meet, I'm giving them a business card because that's all I thought I needed.
That's all you needed.
That's it. That and a borrowed video camera.
Oh gosh,
that's it.
You can walk any room at that point. But I want to go back to the culture side because my family actually did the same process where my father came first. Why do you believe like our parents do it? Like in the Haitian culture. You think of course, thanks, Matt. I owe you again. Do you believe that they're sending men first to put them in position?
To establish the home, right? So when my father first came, he started working in construction. He had to find a job and start working, right? And I think our culture understood that, right? That you send the man first, that he sets up everything, and then because that's exactly what my dad did. I had 4 sisters in Haiti, and once he got established, he sent over for everybody. I was born here. A couple of my brothers were born here in America, but there were siblings that were already in Haiti that he sent. My mom and the siblings, and he sent for them. I think it's just you establish the home because without a home, and that home isn't because when they first came here, they didn't own a home,
right?
But even just having an apartment. You establish that and that the money's coming in, then you bring, you could take care of your family and then you bring everyone over.
Do you believe that was established before that he even left? Like, hey, this is our plan.
It's a great question. I think it was.
Of course, you're not going to have that conversation with him
because
Haitians don't talk about anything.
Right.
But just the thought of it, I wish I could be in that room because my parents did it. What that conversation looked like, how important is that trust within the home and, her trusting him to go. and set up, and him even in the setup process.
Yeah.
Like, what was that like for him? You know,
Yeah.
did you guys all come back? Well, did your sibling, your older sisters came together, or was it like?
I think they came one by one. So I wasn't born yet when they came over.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think they came. I'm pretty sure they came one by one. But yeah, it was my dad that signed for them. Yeah,
that's dope.
Yeah.
So now you're in growing up in Pompano. What's the lifestyle like in Pompano? What's the I mean, well, you had enough people in your house that you could hang out with,
right? Yeah,
but going outside in Pompano, what'd that look like?
It was just one big community. Like for me, so where I grew up is specifically called Kendall Greens, and everybody knew everybody, and it was like I had friends that played outside and did all that, but I didn't do that.
You were safe inside.
I was inside, and but the other thing too, that we were a big church going community too. And we didn't all go to the same church, but you knew every Sunday your friends were going to church.
Absolutely.
And so, but that's what it was. I always tell people like I didn't necessarily grow up rich, but I didn't grow up poor either. And what I mean by that is we didn't have a lot of money, but we also had people that we could depend on in our community. And so for me, that's what Pompano always was. It's home. It always will be. I don't think I could ever really move out of Florida, but it's always just been home for me.
So what was it that gave you that identity that it was that, because I know growing up in my hometown, we did count on each other. Like if my father had a pickup truck, so he was the one that lent the pickup truck. Mm-hmm. We know this lady cooked the best rice.
Yeah.
So she's going to cook everybody. Like, was that the same community?
Yeah, it was. When you said that about the pickup truck, so when I first started working, it was me and a couple of my friends, and my dad would be the one to pick us up every night. And so, yeah, it was just everybody depended on everybody. Like it wasn't this is mine and we're not gonna ever talk to you. It was everybody knew and even up until, because my dad lived in the same house until he passed away. Even until then, like, so my dad passed away at home, and people would say, yeah, he was walking.
How old was he?
74.
He was hanging out.
Just hanging out. And so, yeah, it's just one big community, and that's what I've always loved about Pompano. It's home. It's home. Home, not in the sense that your house is there, home as in your environment is there. Everything feels comfortable. It's a safe place.
So then, all right, so now we're in, call it middle school, high school. What you say you were in, how old were you when
17, when I started the business.
You're already in high school.
Yeah.
So even like around 8 years old, writing the books and the lifestyle you were living in that time, how was your brothers and sisters with the support, or like watching their younger brother just sit there and write and write and write?
They couldn't understand it. They couldn't understand. So the joke always was, though, that I'd become a lawyer because I wrote so much. But outside of that, they couldn't understand. Why is it that?
I promise you, Haitian homes are so funny. Lawyer, doctor, teacher.
Yeah.
It's the norm,
It's
and I have an African friend, and he always told me that's the same type of West in that culture was like, you attorney, doctor, this and like that, like this,
or some type of medical field, because my sisters ended up being in the medical field. But
nurses, guaranteed. Yep. What a coincidence.
Yeah.
So out of high school now, you're you get inspired.
Yep.
You had a teacher that put a battery pack on you and told you this is it.
Yeah.
You believed her. What was next for you after that?
Trying to figure it out. Getting clients. So I remember I used to do like $500 weddings.
Already at 17?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you was locked in.
But that wasn't
already.
a lot of money though. I mean,
no, I'm saying you was already locked in. Already know that I'm 17 in high school. I'm already.
Oh yeah. I did church events. I did weddings, birthday parties, and I didn't get my big break though until I was 19. And I call it a big break. It wasn't that much money. I mean, it was money, but it wasn't that much money compared to today. It was 2018. The city that I live in, Pompano Beach, was celebrating 100 years. And they did this bid where you had to, they wanted to do a documentary on the 100th anniversary, and I put in my bid for it. $6,000.
Let's go back.
What's up?
How the heck you knew this process of putting in a bid?
I guess you could say I was friends with or mentored by one of the commissioners. His name is Ed Phillips. And he had seen me just doing my own thing. He knew that he was always big on, again, Pompano is a community town.
Yeah.
So he was always big on trying to uplift people that were actually doing things in the community. And he saw that I had started this business, video production business, and he was the one that let me know, like, hey, they're getting ready to do this big 100th anniversary. Find a way to be a part of it. And he introduced me to the right people, and that's how I ended up finding out they were doing the bid. And so, yeah, I put in my bid, $6,000 at the time. and it was to document what they called early settlers. So people that had came, early settler families, people that had came to Pompano Beach back in the 20s, 30s, and to just understand what it was like back then compared to today. And so,
That's a real story for you.
oh yeah, that's why I say it was my big break. It was my big break. So I went to Lynn University for my freshman year of college, and I got that contract at the same time, and I was just like, there's no way I'm going to let this contract go away. So I decided to drop out of college at that point.
For that big $6,000, this school thing is not going to work out.
It's not. And because Lynn was expensive too. Now I got scholarship to go to Lynn, but it was expensive. It was $20,000 back then. It might be even much more now, but $20,000 a year. But I got that big break, and I told my family, I was like, look, I'm going after this. I'll go back to college is what I said. I knew in my mind I was never going back.
Right.
But I decided to take on that project because I knew I was already working in the field. The $500 weddings and stuff like that, they weren't cutting it. But this $6,000, I knew I was going to turn that into something. At least that was what I had in my mind back then. And so, I took on that big project, and 19 years old, spent a whole year, 12 months working on that project.
So it was a year project. Now, what's the hurdles you learned in that process?
There's a lot. I think one of the biggest ones was communication. So I had to manage the interviews with these families, right? So
was there a timeline for you guys to get it done?
Yeah, I forget now. It might have been 9 months that I had to get it done. It was a 12-month contract, but it had to be done in 9 months because they wanted to show it. They wanted to have it ready to show within the same year, 2018. And yeah, I think the biggest thing was communication with the families. The other thing too is it was a big project that I had never really done before. And so I was learning as I went, right? There were mistakes I definitely made.
And most of us do in this business.
Yeah, there were definitely a lot of mistakes that I made. Microphone not being on, or not pressing
Matt, is the mic on right now? Just want to make sure.
Or not pressing record when,
no memory card.
Well, no, I was filming on tape back then. DV tapes. So this is 2008, filming on DV tapes still. So it was just a lot. It was a lot to learn.
But that first contract and that scale, that $6,000 number, was that the clarity that you got that there's some money in this business, or did you already knew there is potential to be very successful in this business?
I knew there was potential. I don't think I thought of it as big money. I think I thought of it as potential because I didn't feel like not that I didn't deserve it. I didn't feel like I should have got that. I was 19
So your
years
relationship
old.
with money and everything you were doing, you felt like you weren't skilled enough, or why you think you were? So
I didn't feel like I was skilled enough. I didn't feel like I was skilled enough or knew what I was doing. Now in my mind, it was I had to know what I was doing in order to get those kind of projects. I've learned later that it's not necessarily the case.
It's all relationship.
But it was always like, so when I put in the bid, I remember this vividly. I put in the bid and I thought to myself, I wasn't going to get it. I did it as an act of, let me at least rehearse and figure out how to do it. Because it was a whole process. It's not just giving them an invoice. It was giving the vision, writing out the vision, tell them exactly how you wanted to execute it. I think there was even an interview process at one point. Because this was in partnership with the Pompano Beach Historical Society. And so you had to go before them as well and explain the project. So I didn't think I was going to get it. 19-year-old kid coming to ask for a
$6,000 bid.
Right? For me, it didn't make sense. But once I got it, at that point, it was like, and I still operate in this way today, be a good steward of it. So, okay, I got it. Now, how do I execute this? It wasn't about the money, I think, back then for me. It was just like, how do I make sure to actually execute this? Because I think growing up as Haitian, it was more embarrassing not to do it right than to just to get paid and then not do it. It was more embarrassing not to do it right. And that was for me. It was like, how do I get this right?
But even when you were going through that process, did you have to do LLC? Did you have to do all these things already?
Yeah, it was a different company back then, but S Corp is what I was. I had already set that up. When Mrs. Donnelly gave me those business cards, I also went and set up the business as well.
What do you ask? What do you do? Like, how do you go through that process?
Great question. I don't remember, to be honest.
You just knew you were impacted. Let me figure it out now.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, again, it goes back to being a good steward. It was, Mrs. Donnelly believed in me so much that she got me business cards.
I got to make it right now.
Yeah. And even if I didn't believe, because again, I didn't know what it looked like to be an entrepreneur. Even if I didn't believe, I was going to at least try to line up my ducks and make sure my ducks are in a row. Right. And luckily I did, because that was a requirement, obviously, with working for the city of Pompano Beach. You can't just be some random person. It had to be a company. And that was why, like, I made sure to always do things the right way back then. But it just ended up all working out in the end for me.
So then what happens after that? So the bid process come. Are you still hustling now? Still doing weddings?
Still hustling, doing weddings, doing birthday parties. I remember I was at one point I had advertised in the Yellow Pages back then when the Yellow Pages were around.
You really was grinding.
But because of that, I got a lot of retirement parties. And I didn't like them, but they were good money.
But they paid.
Paid really well. And so yeah, I did that. I did that for the first 5 years, but I was struggling to make money. First 5 years of business, I struggled to make $20,000 a year. And then there was one morning I woke up and I heard the sounds of chains hitting the floor. And it had always been a nightmare to hear these chains hitting the floor. I jumped up out of bed. I went outside and looked at the front window. And what it was a tow truck driver coming to repossess my car for the second time in 8 months. I go back in the room, sit on the bed, and at this point, I'm ready to call it quits because maybe my parents are right. 5 years in the business, I'm still struggling to make money. I didn't go to college.
It's the easiest thing to do.
Right? Let me go back to college because that's what my parents wanted me to do. Maybe they were right. I'm the youngest. What do I know? In that moment, I get a phone call from a client I had been working with for a year. Now, this is another one that's my biggest client at this point. Her name was Keisha Dior. She goes by Keisha Dior now. And Keisha Dior calls me in excitement, and she's like, Jude, you won't believe it. I just got off the phone with my accountant. He said we made $1 million. For people that don't know who Keisha Dior is, she was creating a cosmetic business at the time called Dior Cosmetics. I was filming the documentary for it. So when she launched the business, we also put out the documentary. And in 1 year, 12 months, she had made $1 million. In 5 years, I was still struggling to make $20,000 a year. And at that moment, there were two ways I could have gone. I could have gone really bitter and it was just like, you know what? This is truth. I don't know what I'm doing. Here's another person who's been doing it less time than me and making $1 million. Or I've created value for your client. What was the difference between me and her? Why was she able to make $1 million and I wasn't? And I decided to take the second route. And I went back and learned marketing and sales. So the first 5 years were a complete struggle for me because it was just like, yeah, I was hustling, but I didn't really know what I was doing because I didn't understand marketing and sales. I didn't understand the numbers, the economics behind what I was doing. But once I saw Keisha was able to make $1 million from it, I was like, okay, there's something big here. And for context, so I told you, City of Pompano Beach was $6,000. Keisha's project was only $3,000, right? So there was this numbers game that I really didn't understand back then, the amount of work and the value that I put into the work that I'm doing, that completely transformed after that.
What was it?
What was it
that transformed you believe? Because you went from the bid for $6,000 but $3,000 with Keisha. What made you accept?
Keisha was half the time. So it was 6 months that I was filming her. What made me accept it is it was actually the kind of work I wanted to do. So Keisha came
and
to
also,
me.
sorry to go before that. How did you even come up with the numbers and the bid of like charging that?
Just a number. Don't know. It was just a number.
That's what we do when we first start in this business. We just throw whatever.
It's just a number.
Like.
It wasn't even like looking at what other production companies were doing.
Right.
It was just
what you thought you were valued at.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so I remember, but when Keisha came to me, I remember her coming to me saying she wanted to do vlog videos because that was
the hottest thing there.
Right. And I was just like, I don't want to do that. I want to do that. I want to do documentaries. And so I pitched her an idea on doing a documentary. And she agreed to it. So again, it wasn't about the money. It was more like, oh, wait, someone believed in the way that I actually want to do something. That was more important to me. Because it was always my dream to do documentaries. By that point, it was my dream because I love real stories. I didn't want to do movies or music videos or anything like that. I wanted to do real stories, and I knew documentaries was that.
It's my favorite.
And so when she agreed, it was just like, that's all I cared about. It wasn't whether or not I was making enough money or should I be charging her more. We did have an agreement, though, that we started at $3,000 and that we would time we renew the contract, we would increase the rate. And she did do that. We worked together for 3 years. But again, it wasn't about the money for me. It was just like, I need to get this right.
So let me tell you, in that process, how, and I never even spoke with you about this, that documentary impacted everything I done after that.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Nobody ever
Why
knew
is that?
I watched someone that I knew that was in the mud get to create for somebody that created $1 million less than a year.
Yeah.
And that was the whole time with Gucci. You know, I'm from hip hop, so the whole Gucci and it was people that I could I know these, like I see this often.
Yeah.
Then I was like, wait, that's Jude doing this.
Yeah.
So I used to literally tell people, like, I know the guy that did this. I know the guy that did this.
Yeah.
And for me, of course, us as Haitians, and I think a lot of people don't know this, like when we find out another Haitian did something,
no doubt,
it does something to us where we like, get that shit. Like, it feels good. So I think it did so much for me that I never, like I said, I'm getting a chance and honor to share that, to say that to you. But that impacted my company.
Yeah.
It impacted so many things that I did after that because I saw it was attainable. Because at that point, I was doing a lot of. So me and Courtney always did the blog media stuff where, end of 203, 905 hip hop, like we 305 movement. We did a lot of the content, but I was the creative director or the businessman. I was a creative that was always trying to put us in position and make more money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whichever our storytelling goes, we love storytelling, but we did not know how to manage the equipment. And I'll buy a bunch of equipment and I never shot. So we will find people that could say they could do it and they tried it for a moment and they quit because you see the process of being a creative.
Yep.
So then we found out 9 times out of 10, most creative hate talking with people.
Yes.
So we kept on seeing the science behind it. So we just said, you know what, let's forget the video guy. We're going to focus on the graphics, the web, things that we could control, creating a media platform. But once we saw the importance of where video was going and we saw you doing it, we were like, oh shit, we can do it.
Yeah.
We know Jude. So if he could do it, we could do it. And it was more for me, it was an empowerment thing because like I said, when I saw Keisha, to this day, I don't care what anybody said, that documentary was it for her.
Yeah.
I truly feel maybe I paid attention more after I watched the documentary and I got a chance to learn more about her.
Yeah.
And I think that base and that foundation is still, I believe, that one of the most important thing in this industry is storytelling.
The power of stories. When people get to really know who you are beyond the thing that you're selling. And that's what I focused on more with her documentary. It was like, she was doing lipstick, but it was really about women empowerment, right? It was really about the day that she went out to the club and she was, she wanted to wear blue lipstick. That's really the origin of that story. She wanted to wear blue lipstick, couldn't find it anywhere. So she created it and then went out to the club and people kept asking her, where can I find that? Where can I find that? And she was like, no, I could start a business from this. Right. But it's that story, knowing about this moment in time. That's what a story is, a specific moment in time that made the work that me and her did together popular, right? Or made it impactful because it was, okay, you got to learn that about her. Then you got to see behind the scenes of her doing a photo shoot. And there's a scene specifically, this is years ago, but I remember this scene where she says, people, because she's Jamaican, people think she's a little feisty. And she's like, no, I just know what I want, right? But again, you're getting to understand the mind of the entrepreneur. Absolutely. That was always a big thing to me is like, I don't want to just see you doing behind, like vlog videos is just that. Absolutely. You just see them doing things. I want to get into your mind and understand why you do the essence of the person. Right. And when you understand the essence of the person, that's what changes everything. And that, even to this day, why I'm still in storytelling is because I want to get deep to understanding the core of who that person is to bring that to life.
Absolutely. Right? I believe that's the foundation of, I believe every entrepreneur, every CEO need to start their base on that. That's what we have. We have something that we do in our company, which is the About Me video.
Right. Yeah.
Who you are, what are you doing, and how are you doing it?
Yeah.
But that who you are is so important for the story because a lot of entrepreneurs want to show, like you said, this is who I am. This is what I do. I'm the biggest CEO, but who are you?
Right.
Like, what's your kids? Like, what's your family? Like, how does it feel? Like, I think the feeling is important because I believe that's the power of content. Content for me, the reason I locked in was the emotion of storytelling, like the impact, like the music, like everything around storytelling is I believe that's the thing I was telling you about when we first started doing this and we were talking behind the scene. When I was working with clients and I started losing the feeling and didn't produce that feeling that I wanted out of the content, like I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to be another vlog video. I don't want to be another BTS.
Yeah.
Like what are we doing here? Could
Right,
I please go home?
Yeah.
But I want to get back into, you said something I think that was so important. When you realize you were producing value, you locked in. Like what was happening that you realized I'm valuable? I'm producing value for people. Like
I strongly believe it goes back to what Mrs. Donnelly did for me. It was tangible at that point. Keisha Dior making $1 million off of a documentary project. Now, it wasn't the only thing that she did at the time, but part of the equation was that documentary project. It made it tangible that I created this video and then she made $1 million. Like I could equate that to something. Before I was just doing projects like even City of Pompano Beach. Were they happy with the project? Absolutely. But it was just a finished project and that's it. I didn't understand that, oh, I could finish a project, but this person continues to make money from this over and over and over and over again. I think the biggest thing I looked at was like music industry. When they create music, you create it one time, but then over and over you make money from it. The producer makes money from it. The person that wrote it make money from it. The person that performed the music make money from it. That's what I'd seen with Keisha Dior's project. But I also understood it was marketing. One of the first books I read, Jay Abraham, he has a book called Getting Everything You Can Out of Everything You've Got. And he tells stories over and over of these companies that have transformed the way their business operates, like FedEx, that got the idea of the overnight package from the banking industry, because banking was just doing that. And or even Henry Ford, who created the first assembly line from the meat industry. And I was like, okay, so how do I illustrate? How do I communicate? You talked about creatives not being able to communicate or wanting to communicate. That was my biggest hurdle, is how do I communicate the vision in a way that gets them to want to pay me more money, to see the value for themselves? I understood a long time ago, once I started learning marketing and sales, it was never about me trying to convince someone to work with me as much as trying to show them that they were making the right decision on their own. And so, and so once it clicked that, okay, Keisha's made money from this. How do I repeat this now? I took a course, an online course called Earn 1K. And the premise behind that course was you learn how to earn your first $1,000. And then if you learn how to do that, you repeat it. Now, I had already earned $1,000, but I didn't earn it the right way, in my opinion. And I didn't know how to repeat it. But this course showed me marketing and sales, how to communicate the value to the client in order to repeat it. And so I think that's what really, like, working on this project with Keisha, it was like, why did she decide to give me money and then continue to give me money for 2 years after that? What was it? Why did people want to watch her work behind the scenes or listen to her talk or be so inspired? Like, I remember seeing people talking about they're crying while watching this.
I swear to you.
And but how do I communicate that to a client for them to understand? Even Keisha cried on part 3 of her docuseries. We had done a documentary series at that point. And part 3, she watched it and cried. And I was just like,
that feeling different as a
but
creative.
knowing, it's one thing if you consciously do it, okay, but how do you communicate that though? Like, that was the biggest thing. How do you communicate the value?
How do you communicate that?
For me, it's all storytelling, right? So 2014, I went to a leadership conference. And I always knew growing up leadership was important to me. I didn't know how. I didn't know how I would do it, but I knew it was important. And this leadership conference was in Spokane, Washington, right? So Spokane, Washington.
Who knows where that's at?
Exactly. Exactly. So it's in Washington State, which is the furthest northwest point of America. I live in Florida, the furthest southeast point. And I had this.
1 second, because I want you to explain it, because your friends in Pompano right now, when they watch, they're not going to know where Spokane, Washington is. I just want to let you know that.
It's further than California. It's further than
north.
Just all the way north and then west.
And it's cold.
And it's cold.
And rains a lot.
So I go to Spokane, Washington. I have this crazy idea when I'm coming back from Spokane, Washington, that I would take a Greyhound bus back home. I'm 25 years old. I've gone to this leadership conference that I feel like it's amazing, and I want to take it back in. It's a 3-day bus trip though. But I said to myself, this is never going to happen again. So let me just do it. Right?
No, that's not going to happen again.
I turn off my phone. I'm trying to enjoy the trip. By day 2, I'm miserable, completely miserable. I turn my phone back on. We get to Chicago, Illinois. I turn my phone back on, and I get this text message from my sister. She said, "Call me back. It's urgent." Now, this is July 2014. My mother had been diagnosed with depression and had attempted suicide. My father was diagnosed with prostate cancer 3 months before that. Called my sister back. Unfortunately, ends up being dad. They found him unresponsive in the home.
Your mother was unresponsive?
My father was unresponsive in the home. So I get on the first flight back home from Chicago, Illinois to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. My brother comes to pick me up. He comes with his daughter, my niece, Ayana. I hug my brother. I don't say a word. I hug my niece. We don't say a word. But I sit in the back seat with my niece, Ayana. She's like 9 years old at this time. And I'm staring out in space because I'm 25 years old. I'm the youngest of 10. My father would never see me get married or have children. And I never imagined I would lose him. Because even when he got diagnosed, we didn't think it was that bad.
He's a superhero. He's a Haitian man.
Right. So I am staring off in space. And my niece, Ayana, says to me, she said, "Uncle, why did Grandpa have to die?" And I just stared at her.
I can't wait to hear the answer.
And she said it again. "Why did Grandpa have to die?" Question rang in my ear as we're making funeral arrangements, deciding what to do with the assets. And then on August 9th, 2014, I'll never forget it. I, Jude Charles, the youngest of 10 children, am tasked with giving my father's eulogy. And it's in that moment that I realized leadership wasn't just important, it was leading through difficult moments. I had discovered my purpose. I tell you that long, drawn-out story right now because that is the story I open with when I first meet with clients. And the way that I normally end it is I say to them, I am here because we usually do a consulting session, a road mapping consulting session. I say, I'm not here to tell you how to do video or even how to tell your story. I'm just here to lead you through this process. It's going to be difficult. I'm going to ask you questions you've probably never been asked before. You're going to feel uncomfortable, but I know what it's like to be in that place, and I'm going to lead you through it the same way I did back in 2014. So you ask me, okay, how do you transfer emotion? How do you get someone how do you communicate the value that you really bring? It goes back to what you said, emotion.
So I wanted to sign the contract.
Exactly. It goes back to emotion, right? You tell stories.
You figure it out.
Because I can tell you statements all day long. So my mission and vision in life is to lead and empower entrepreneurs to have relentless courage. But that's just a statement. Because I wrapped it into a story, it gives you a clear understanding and a clear picture of what that looks like. At the most difficult moment in my life, 25 years old, where I lose the patriarch of our family, I not only have to go through losing him, but then telling his story and the legacy that he leaves behind, and then leading my family through that process. I can't communicate what it means to lead and empower entrepreneurs to have relentless courage unless I tell you that story. Right? And so that's what I learned probably a little bit after work. Because even the Mrs. Donnelly story, I didn't share that story when Keisha and I first worked together, or any client that I met around that time. I didn't share the story of how did I even get started? What is my story? I never used to do that. Now I incorporate stories, whether it's my own or my client's stories, in everything that I do.
I think the power of storytelling, and just the experience I just had with you, I was so connected to that story. Mm-hmm. Like I was in the back seat with you and your niece. Like I was waiting to hear what you were going to tell her.
Yeah.
Like, and I still was waiting like the whole time. Like, what does he tell her? It just shows, I mean, I'm getting so excited about this process because a couple things with that. Do you believe you would have learned that skill trait going to school?
That's a great question. Probably not. I learned it through experience, I think.
And that's the point. I didn't go to school for this either. You know, I'm a 2-time college dropout. I tried twice and was like, this is not making any sense.
Yeah.
Nothing against college, nothing against the, you know, that process. I think everybody, like, I wish at time I went to school because of the structure, the foundation, a lot of things in that, you know, that I believe school brings, but education is a thing that I believe we don't stop learning.
Yeah.
But just the way you connect with a client at that point, because I'm sitting here like if I'm a client, like I'm authentically connected with you, and I want to know more, and I want to be able to express myself or telling my story the same way, but I need support with that.
Right.
I need the guidance. I need the tools around me to actually execute that.
Yeah.
And the way you presented that, it made me feel like I could trust him doing that. And even with me working with clients, and I think I've grown from doing that myself, where the clients that I service, I really want to be part of their life.
Right.
It's really an intimate thing for me.
But take a simple statement like that. I want to be part of your life. How do you even communicate that? How do you tell me a story and show me at the same time I want to be part of your life? Like right now, think through that. How do you do that?
Well, so for me, I don't know if I have all the right words to articulate correctly on how, but I'm just experiencing, like I'm thinking to myself right now, when it comes to servicing a client, it's so important for me to understand their purpose.
Yeah.
Like, what are you here to do? How are you going to impact? Like, why are you really here? You know, are we just shooting to fulfill your ego issue? Like, what is it that and 9 times out of 10, I believe the great ones really have a purpose.
Yeah.
You know, and once you're able to cast the authenticity and the purpose behind what they do, we then could create the best content.
Yeah.
But if we don't meet in that in that middle, we're not going to be able to execute correctly.
You ever worked with a client who gave you the feeling like you were like, this is the right client to work with because they had purpose?
I think majority of my clients today.
But give me one client that wows you. They're not that, and for your clients that may be watching, this isn't the best client.
Yeah,
right?
I gotta be
this
careful
isn't
with
number
that,
one. But who comes to mind when you think of a client that's
let me
walking
just
in
go
their
back
purpose?
to recent clients. So we have a senator that we just did we've done a lot of campaign work for.
Yeah.
A lot of content creation. Me and that senator sat in a board together 10 years ago at the board at the YMCA. I can't remember which organ. Not the YMCA, not the Boys and Girls Club. Give me one more.
Kiwanis, not Kiwanis.
Not Kiwanis. I'm not gonna figure it out. But it was like the
Big Brothers, Big Sisters. No.
It might be the Burgundy. I can't remember
brand colors.
Yeah, brand. I know brand color. That's my issue. Like it goes. That's the science in my head. So we sat on a board together, and he started small. He started working in the community, putting in the work. He then started running for office and small state representative. You know, all these positions. And when I got a chance to sit with him, I actually interviewed him in a podcast. So the more I got a chance to connect with him humanly, but we kept on doing other things before, and I kept on running into him, and he always was a solid dude.
Yeah, but there's a moment where that happened. When did that happen? When did it click? Like, no, this guy.
I think it clicked because I wanted to do a story on him for free.
Okay.
Years ago, by just his consistency. So I love someone that's committed, consistent.
Yeah. Because
that's always going to equal up to success.
Yeah.
So when I saw his commitment and his consistency, I locked in.
Yeah.
So I created an outlet, a platform called Good News Riviera Beach, where I wanted to tell good things happening in the city. And I presented this to a group. They were like, why are we going to fund him? We don't want to talk about him. So I always knew I wanted to tell his story.
Yeah.
And what he does and how he do it. But I knew the timing wasn't right because I'm running around doing a bunch of things. But the perfect timing was when his campaign started. And at this point, I really pick and choose who I want to work with. If I truly don't love what you're doing or know you're impacting and know you're bringing value to the world, it doesn't excite me. I don't want to bring all the resources to you and you're not going to really utilize it. Because once again, we all have purpose. Like I love serving. Like I love being a servant, so I'm able to work for people.
Mm-hmm.
And it was to the point with me building a business when I understand the value I brought to people, I'm locked in. These are the things that I want to. The reason to activate. So I believe once I realized the authenticity and who he was, who he is as a person, and know that the route he chose as politics is really a route that he chose to bring impact, to bring value. I never saw him as another politician. I saw him as someone that took the political route to also bring value and impact. You know, I wouldn't choose that route, but I saw what he did. So for me, when creating for him, to answer the, I just felt it was authentic.
Yeah.
And I knew he wanted, I knew the tools and the resources that I have, I could bring value to him by letting him express and be who he is and not think about the whole process, how it's going to be delivered.
Yeah.
Like we're able to cook up, we're able to clean, we're able to do all the things that we do in house, you know, with my team, you know, where we're able to deliver to him. But once I knew he was consistent, he was committed, I know I could lock in with him. So I think that's what I look for in clients.
But here's how I challenge you with that. There is a very specific moment that happened. Now, you won't know the answer now, but it's something to think about that happened that illustrates why he became that client for you. Now, I'll give you a couple moments. It could be you sitting on the board with him and he's fighting for something that he wants to happen in the community. It could be once you finish the project and you showed it to him for the first time. And it's a culmination, but it's that day. You sit there, you show it to him, and you realize, wow, I've really told this man's story.
I think it's the belief.
So belief is a word. What I'm challenging you to do is give me a specific day that word comes to life for you.
I believe when we had probably our second meeting to discuss his future. It wasn't just on the political side. It was the overall future of where he wants to be for his family, the whole outlook of where he wants to be.
Why did that matter to you?
Because I'm a servant first.
Okay.
So my tools and resources could get him closer to that.
Yeah.
So I think the moment, you said something that haven't happened to you with Keisha. I think the moment somebody believes you could accomplish the goals that they have and they believe in you, and you could actually get them to that next stage, that's the battery in my back. I know I could bring value to you. I know I could truly commit, because you're committing to your family to do whatever it is that you have to do to get to that point. I could do the same.
So we take that day, the second meeting, where he's sharing his vision with you. Just hold on to that day for a second. But if you go to meet with another client, and you say that line that you said, you choose the clients you work with because they got to have purpose. Like that's so important to you. You transition that into saying that line. You say the line, but you transition it into, let me tell you about the day that I worked with this one client. And we went and had our second meeting. And I'm sitting there listening to him tell me about his vision. But you take me into that day. The reason why that's so important, that specific moment in time, is because instead of you just saying the statement, which I think is you should still say it, you bring them into a story that illustrates, hey, if you don't have a vision, that's something you should probably think about, because that's the clients I work with, they have vision, right? Because I'm the same way. So the other way you could go about doing it is I believe in core values. And so I have 5 core values. One of them is depth versus width. And under depth versus width, I have these stories that illustrate what that means. What does it mean for me to have depth? Or what does it mean for my clients to have depth? What does it look like in my business to work in depth, right? Because I only work with 5 clients a year, video production side. But again, you take me to a very specific moment in time that illustrates that. You asked me the original question before I told you a story about Spokane, Washington. You asked me, okay, but how do you communicate the value? Instead of just saying how I communicated the value, I told you I walked you into the story that I normally tell right before I work with a client, right? And so that's the way I would challenge you and all creatives, because creatives struggle with that. They struggle with communicating beyond the sentences to really getting deep into this is why the sentence matters. The why is a story.
And I definitely I needed to hear that because the capacity where we're going right now, the whole team and I, I believe that's that secret sauce. I needed to hear today, especially for someone that I know.
Yeah.
That that's in the same, that's in the same space, but I genuinely knew when you're in the mud, to where you are today, where that I believe separates. There's another level of creative content because, like I said, a lot of people I know shoot weddings and shoot things, but the ones that truly tell stories really have that niche where they, I don't have the right words yet, but I'm it's so powerful with this conversation that we just had. It did so much for me.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. But I want to go to another part in that story. What made the kid from Pompano that decided to go into film production? Why was it important for you to go into these other spaces and to learn about marketing and sales and going into Washington, and like why and where did you get that from?
Curiosity, man. I've always been a curious kid. And I never looked at things just being in a box. Right. So going to Spokane, Washington for a leadership conference. I'd never been to Washington State before then, but it was just, why not?
Was it information that was given to you or?
Yeah, I'm sure it was probably a friend that, gosh, that's a great question because I'm trying to remember, how did I even find out about the leadership conference? But I think it was a friend that told me about it. And he was like, I think you should go to this. Maybe he found it online or something. But I've always just, when I read the book, Getting Everything You Can Out of Everything You've Got, Jay Abraham, at that point, and this is all around the same time that I, Keisha had made $1 million and I'm trying to figure out marketing and sales. At that point, I realized what's going to help me make money is not paying attention to video production. Now, within those first 5 years, I was paying attention to everybody that were doing projects in video production.
Mm-hmm.
But I understood at that point how to be an entrepreneur. And an entrepreneur doesn't just look at their own industry, they look at other industries in order to remix it, right? But I've always been curious too, though. And I think it was a combination. It was a combination of being curious, knowing like I want to learn about other things and learn how other people are doing their projects. Like I'll take road mapping, for example. Road mapping, which is a consulting session that I do with clients, I found through a web design company that was doing these strategy sessions, these mock-ups before they ever build a design. And I was like, I'm already doing this. Like I in our world, it's called treatments, right? I was already doing a treatment. But the caveat was they were charging for it. And so I was like, could I charge a client $500 just to do a treatment? We tried it out. Didn't hurt to try it. The one thing is I've never been afraid to take risks. And so I tried it. That was 2014. I think it was when I did my very first one at $500. Today, as we're recording this 2022, I charge $17,000 for a road mapping session. But
those
it's always
numbers work a little different.
Say that again.
Those numbers are a little different.
Exactly. But it's just being curious. I love cycling. And I was cycling this one Saturday morning. Deerfield Beach, which is not too far from where it's not far from where I was at the time. And I'm cycling and I hear the sounds of like trumpets, this music playing. And I'm passing Deerfield Beach High School at this time. And I can't figure out where it's coming from. I have my headphones in, but it's not coming from my headphones. So I keep cycling. I get to the back of the stands at Deerfield Beach High. This is a Saturday afternoon. I get to the back of the stands, and there's this kid at the top of the stands playing the trumpet. And it clicked for me. This kid is here on a Saturday afternoon playing his trumpet as if it's game day. He's rehearsing. In life, we all get the opportunity to play the game that we want to play. And for me, I always looked at how can I challenge the way that I play the game? I brought a book that I wanted to talk about. One of the most influential books that I've ever read, Reginald F. Lewis. You know who that is? Reginald F. Lewis he's the first African American to form a $1 billion company in America. And he has a book titled Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? It's a biography of his life and how he was able to form the $1 billion business. If I'm honest, that is how I've lived my life. I don't believe in the frame or the box that is there racism? Is there things that hold us back? Absolutely. But I don't allow that to lead my life. Like, why should white guys have all the fun? There's things that there's things that are available that we are open to that we can learn. And that's what I've always just tried to do is how can I learn more? How can I learn more? This is not, for me, it's never been about a limit. Like I started this business at 17 because a teacher believed in me. She didn't see me as a 17-year-old kid who shouldn't start a business. She saw me as a 17-year-old who was talented. She may not have known a lot about business, but she had the same feeling that most people have. All he needs is business cards. Right? If we could hold on to that belief that we can play whatever game we want to play, no matter what it looks like, that's just how I've always lived my life. Relentless courage.
I think that base, we speak about this often. A couple of people I know that, and like you said, it's not an excuse. We could be sensitive about a lot of things but our mindset is everything.
Yeah.
If we create a story and we believe it, we lock in.
Yeah.
We're in trouble.
The most powerful story you could ever tell is a story you tell yourself.
It's a fact. So if you really believe that the white man is holding you back and all these things,
you'll never try.
But I think a lot of those stories are passed down.
Oh, for sure.
It's a generational thing, A buddy of mine, we were talking earlier about, some things I probably want to talk about on camera. But, the craziest thing, what we kept on connecting that, their parents told them this.
Oh, yeah.
This is like a generational curse that just keep on getting sent down. At some point, you're going to have to change that. Yeah. You're going to have to make a decision and get the clarity. Because a lot of people, once they understand the clarity of where they want to go, they know where they need to start.
Yep.
You knew you wanted to become a successful entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. First, you knew you wanted to become a great videographer, a great storyteller. Mm-hmm. But then you learned a part of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
I've watched so many people in this industry that are super amazing as creative, but they lack entrepreneurship.
Yep.
Because a creative could stop at 3:00.
Mm-hmm.
An entrepreneur don't have a time clock.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got to get the project done.
Mm-hmm.
That separates the ones that are super successful and the ones that are just get by.
Right. Yeah.
And I think once you tell yourself, like you knew you wanted the entrepreneurship part, so you went and studied that art of because entrepreneurship is an art.
It's an art. It's an art.
It's not something that you just create and put a number behind. It's an art, and then just going to get more information. And the moment you were able to impact yourself with information, you now were able to go and
try it out. Yeah, experiment. Yeah.
And then going in that process of getting more information. What made you kept on going back to get more and understanding of what else you needed? Like, what clarity did you get in that process? Was it more reading? Was it, failing or what?
Both. So reading and failing, experimenting. I keep going back to experimenting because it was, even when I didn't believe I could do something, I would try it anyway to prove myself wrong, right? Or right. And like I say, I would learn something from a book. I'm like, is that really possible? So I try it. So it's really just experimenting over and over to see if it could work. I talked about road mapping going from 500 to 17,000. I didn't go there overnight. I kept raising the rate. There was this guy that he owned a water repair company, and we did road mapping. I did road mapping for him, $500. But at that time, road mapping was all about doing road mapping so that the person could move on to the project. Because that's what it was for me. Because the project, I'd make more money off of a video project. But he didn't move forward. And I went back to him. I had ran into him, and I went back to him, and I asked him, why didn't you move forward? You said you enjoyed road mapping. Why didn't you move forward? He was like, I'm the kind of guy that you put a Mercedes-Benz in front of me or you put an Audi in front of me, I'm going to always choose the Audi. And then he was like, what that means is I'm always going to choose a cheaper option. So I took the road mapping, which road mapping is the storyboard and the vision for the project, and he brought it to another videographer. But it's what he said at the end that helped me understand, again, what value is and how other people see value. He was like, but I'd pay for road mapping again. And I realized road mapping on its own was its own product. I was sitting here thinking, oh, that's just a stepping stone to get them to the project. But he saw it as something valuable by itself. He saw the value in the vision, getting the full roadmap, and then taking that to someone else that could just be a technician. E-Myth talks about that, right? Like there's a difference between an entrepreneur, a manager, and a technician. I was still, even at that point, still stuck in tech. I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I wasn't there yet. But I paid attention to what people said and with the value that they got from what I created for them. As soon as he said that, road mapping went from, I think, $500 to $1,000. Went from 1,000 to 3,000. The more people kept giving me feedback of the value that they got from it. There was a client I worked with that I'm still working with now. It's been 3 years. When we did road mapping together, I didn't know this when it first happened. We did road mapping. I think at that time she paid $7,000 for it. After our road mapping session, I just pitched the project to do the project. Project was a 6-figure project. She said she wasn't ready for it. Cool. Year later is when we started working together. She came back. We decided to work together. We've been working together ever since. But she said something to me. She said she got the road mapping because it's a PDF in a pamphlet. She got it. She implemented one of the strategies that I wrote out in the road mapping session that I had told her. It was a throwaway strategy. It really wasn't the main thing. She made $100,000 in 60 days from implementing that strategy. So what did I do? I recorded a video with her talking about it. We have a case study with her talking about it. And of course, the price of road mapping went up right after that. Right? So like when you ask me like why, like it's just continue to experiment, that's what entrepreneurship is. Elon Musk, as we're recording this, has recently bought Twitter. And there's a whole drama around that, right? But he put out a tweet and I was like, this is the point of business. And it's why he is where he is. He put out a tweet. He said, look, Twitter's going to do a lot of dumb things over the next couple months, but we're going to keep trying and see what works and what doesn't work.
He's already preparing you for the experiments he's about to try.
But that's what entrepreneurship is. There are things that, yes, you can make a system and you can repeat in business, but there's just certain things that you got to figure out if it works or not, right? And I'm grateful that I chose to experiment with road mapping because I would have never implemented road mapping. Road mapping, again,
I'm implementing it tonight. Because I do so many other things with clients that I roadmap just freely. Mm-hmm. But I know like there's a project coming up and, and I did years ago, I did something similar where, we did a treatment and I charged for treatments. Yeah. Because I was pouring in the whole creative aspect of what we're going to do. And, they stayed because we finalized the project. But I want to talk about this part, man. Like I'm literally in this conversation and it's doing, I'm part of the audience now.
Right. Well, here's, so you asked me like, how is it that I went after these things? It's exposure. Right. The fact that I've just exposed you to my own road mapping process, it helps you understand, oh no, I gotta implement this today. So it's exposure, and then that's why I go back to experimenting. If you expose yourself to new things, like Spokane, Washington, which I've never been back, but if you expose yourself to new things, you travel, you try new things, it allows you to experiment with other things. You start to make connections that wouldn't have been there before. But you got to expose yourself to it first, right? Like, yeah, you're becoming part of the audience because you're being exposed to something new. Absolutely. Right? And again, that's why the words that I choose, lead and empower, when you're leading someone. So I told you leadership was important to me. When I was doing my father's eulogy, I looked up the word lead, L-E-A-D, because leadership and leading was always like this big idea to me. It was like, you're the president or you're the pastor of the church or something like that. Lead, L-E-A-D, when I looked it up, it just says to guide a group of people along a journey. To guide, right? The only way to guide is to, again, expose them or to have been exposed yourself. You can't take someone somewhere you haven't been yourself. Empower, to lead and empower entrepreneurs to have relentless courage. Empower means I have gifted that to you. You have it, is now in your power to obtain it, right? So to lead and empower entrepreneurs to have, you got to obtain it, relentless courage. If I've done my job, you don't need me in your life forever as a leader. You now take that and you can implement it to someone else. For me, that's what I've always seen is just people that pour or they give or there's an abundance mindset that you then transfer to someone else. But it's exposure, which creates expansion, which you continue to experiment.
You know, another part of it, what I'm laughing in my head, because a friend of mine spoke to me about this a couple of weeks ago. He's like, I think you do these interviews so you can learn.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
What you thought I was doing this for? Yeah. I'm just letting you be part of the learning process. Like, because once again, I know Jude from the mud, and to hear you, this is an art form to you. Mm-hmm. And just even listening to you break down the conversation and giving points and references to people to understand 2022, we're having this Elon Musk conversation. And this time, that's an art skill.
Yeah.
What are you doing to perfect this, to work on this?
Great question. I'm always reading, first and foremost. So I try to read 60 books a year. It doesn't always happen, but 60 books a year. I'm always reading. I've noticed in 2014 when I had a hard time reading books back then, and I gave myself a challenge to read one book a month for the whole year. So that means 12 books. I finished reading 14 books. And in that year, that's the only thing I did. No online courses, nothing else. I read 14 books. I increased my income by 40%. So I was like, okay, there's something to this reading.
Exposure and information.
Right. So reading is always something that I've continued to do since 2014.
Is audiobooks okay with that also?
Audiobooks is okay. Now, I happen to like physical or digital books, but audiobooks is okay. I think, again, just continuing to challenge myself, challenge my own assumptions. I have a plan to retire from video production completely, walk away from it. Part of that is to do something I've never done before, which is what Reginald F. Lewis did. I plan to get into private equity. But it's challenging my assumptions. What is a guy who built a video production business? Why does he? And you're going from creative to financial to entrepreneurship, true entrepreneurship. I just continue to challenge my assumptions. Why not? Why can't I? Right. So reading, challenging my assumptions, writing. The stories that there's stories that I know that I like. The story of my father passing away. I continue to work on those stories. I have what's called a story bank journal. And so I write out the story. Like there's something might happen in my life.
8-year-old storytelling, boy.
Yeah. I went back to it. So I stopped writing for a while, but I went back to it and I've realized the power in writing. Right.
It's power in writing.
And so I just continue to, I don't know that, because I'm careful with this, because there is this, in the self-help world, for me, there's a difference between self-help and self-leadership. So in the self-help world, there's this idea that you've never really arrived. You're never enough. And I'm careful with how I answer this, because it's like, I keep challenging myself and I keep growing, but I'm also comfortable with where I am and who I am, right? And so I don't want to put it in a position where it's just like, oh no, you don't ever arrive, or you're not, I just think there's moments in life we do need to stop and celebrate, right? But at the same time, I continue to work on myself and work on things that happen and how I respond to the things that happen. And I continue to challenge, like, is this where I should be? I think a big part of that is my core values, understanding my mission, getting a very clear understanding of your vision of life, vision and mission in life.
Which I want you to go back to. You said that you have 5 core values?
5. So depth versus width is number 1. Storytelling, obvious. Adventure, which goes back to my curiosity. Freedom, which there are 4 types of freedom. Time freedom, location, client freedom. I want to choose the clients I work with. And financial freedom. And then the 5th one is relentless. I'm always challenging, am I relentless? Am I being relentless in this moment? And so with those core values, I write out stories that represent those core values. The Keisha Dior story is under Relentless. There's another funny story that happened this past Labor Day called Sink or Swim that's under Relentless, right? It's actually there's another story that's happening right now that I'm still trying to figure out. I wrote a book in February of 2022 called Dramatic Demonstration. Wildly, in my opinion, successful book, right? You know who Russell Brunson is?
The name sounds super familiar.
He's the CEO of ClickFunnels.
Okay.
He purchased the book September 7th.
Purchased your book?
My book.
What you have right now?
Which I have right now. It blew me away, right? Blew me away that somehow, some way, my book got in front of Russell Brunson. Now, for context, this book is not a cheap book. This book right now sells at $150. By the time you watch this, it might be more.
I want to buy it before it gets to that point. Just want to hurry up and get there.
So it's not a cheap book, right? I am not someone that's, you can look at my social media, I'm not someone that's really well known. But he bought the book. All right, cool. I get a Facebook message from somebody who's at his event. He ends up having his funnel hacking live event a couple weeks after that. And the person was like, I hadn't talked to her in a while, but she was like, hey, congratulations on your book. I'm at Russell Brunson's event. Immediately in my mind, it's like, oh, he brought the book on stage. She says, he did a presentation titled Dramatic Demonstrations. And she was like, if I were you, I would run Facebook ads to the title of your book. So whatever. All right, cool. Now I understand why he bought the book. He was getting ready to do a presentation, or so I thought. I'm a bit of a detective. And so I went and I think the week after Funnel Hacking Live, I went and looked at, okay, I need to see this presentation because I need to understand, did he really bring the book up or what is it? Russell Brunson is writing a book called Dramatic Demonstration. Same concept. Same idea. And immediately as this is happening, in my mind, it's defeating because if anybody knows who Russell Brunson is, I don't have the resources that Russell Brunson has. And he's not going to sell it the way that I sell it. It's probably going to be a $20 book or a free plus shipping offer. So it's defeating. There's other context of that. I burnt out in 2020 and I'm still recovering from burnout. And so I'm like, do I want to take on this fight?
It's a real thing. I've been there.
And so it's like, do I want to take on this fight? But when you have those core values, and I went and told you all that because when you have the core values, one of the core values is relentless. In this moment, in this season, how can I be relentless? It doesn't mean that I go and burn myself out again, but is there another way to think about this? Perspective. In all of my life, going back to the Keisha Dior moment to even this moment with the Russell Brunson thing, it's perspective. But when you have your core values, the thing that drives you, in my opinion, core values never change. Till the day I die, these will be my 5 core values. When they drive you, then you're able to question yourself. You're able to lead yourself to where you're really ultimately looking to go.
I swear I was just part of the guest again. Like I was just like, you're right. I want to know more about some of the training, some of the, places you've traveled that actually impact you, that you could share with others that they should look into some of these things.
Oh, great question.
And I think I want to keep on hearing great questions.
Yeah.
Every time I hit, I'm like,
no, that's really good because I think I went to Black Tech Week. So Black Tech Week used to be here in South Florida, is now in Cincinnati.
From Felicia and Derek?
So Felicia and Derek sold the company to Brian and his wife, which I'm sorry, his wife, because I know them and I can't remember her name right now. But they sold it to them and they took it to Cincinnati.
Never knew that.
It's.
I just ran into them 2 weeks ago.
It's in its 8th year, I think. Well, I spoke at Black Tech Week, but I was also I sat there and took in like what people were talking about. So I think Black Tech Week is definitely one because it just exposes you to what other people are doing in tech. They talked about private equity, which it was my first time ever going to an event for private equity. Expose yourself to conferences. Like there's conferences, as a Black man, I say it all the time to all of my friends. It is still a shock in 2022 to go to these conferences, and I'm one of only 5, maybe one of 10. Right?
I've been there.
Conferences, and I get it. Some conferences are expensive. Some you have to travel to. But there's
Best money
so
you'll
many
ever spend.
best money y'all ever spend, and it's so many that are happening. You don't always have to travel.
So I'm gonna give you a conference that I went to. I went to Unleash the Power Within.
Tony Robbins. Yeah.
My coach today was in my session. Was like my part. Like I love her dearly. Solid person. Amazing, and she's now my coach.
Yeah.
My business coach, and those conferences have impacted my life in so many ways.
Conferences, I think, are there's just no. So books are definitely one, but conferences are another, and
the relationship that is built within the conferences.
Yes.
So keep on going. I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah, no.
I want to know which conference I need to go
into. But no, Black Tech Week affected me a lot this year. Black Professional Summit, which is local as well. I have been to a funnel hacking live. I've been to this has got Jeff Walker's product launch formula. So he has, I forget what the name of his event is, but he wrote a book called Product Launch Formula. And I've been to that event, 2,000 person event. Trying to think what I've been to in the last, because we had this pandemic a couple of years, so I haven't been to conferences. But conferences were a big deal for me. I started going to conferences in 2014 with the leadership conference. But
so two things within the conferences also. The fear of doing it, knowing that you need to invest in yourself, all those things, like why and what did you do, or how did you get to the point where that was important for you to do and to invest in yourself? It's like a bunch of questions impact in one.
You got to know what you want when you go to those things. What are you looking for? So I'm an introvert. I'm not necessarily always looking to connect with people. I kind of just want to do my own thing, but it ends up happening. You sit next to someone, they want to talk to you, and it ends up happening, which is fine. And I have gained relationships out of that. So I think the relationships are critical. But you got to know what you want going into it. What is it that you're looking to learn? Are you looking to? For some people, they go to conferences just to get new clients. Cool. Are you looking to listen to a specific speaker to find out how do they do what they do? So like Black Professionals Summit that I went to, I was speaking, but I also knew there was a speaker I wanted to listen to, Pinky Cole. I knew Slutty Vegan and the business that she had created, but I never heard her story, and I never really understood how she created the business. I just wanted to sit there and learn. You got to always want to learn. And
so the want to learn part is a very important piece.
Yeah, I think I noticed, although I didn't go to college, I noticed the power of education. And for me, every time that I go, now there's some conferences I go to and I don't learn a thing and I feel like I wasted my time. But there's some that just completely changed the game for me. Product Launch Formula was one of those because I thought differently about how I did marketing because of Product Launch Formula. And so it's just masterminds. That's a big one. Masterminds, going to masterminds, investing in masterminds. I've invested in masterminds that were like, I think the most was $25,000 for a mastermind. But there are conversations happening in mastermind groups, and sometimes they're very small. It could be 10 people. Other times, this one that was 25,000 was about 100 people. But
I just did the math.
But there are deep conversations that are happening that, again, you wouldn't get exposed to unless you were in the room. Investing in myself, there's not a dollar I've invested that was wasted. Even if I feel like I didn't learn anything, it wasn't wasted.
You're exposed to the community. You're exposed to...
Yes.
Because you said from the beginning, like, once you're exposed and you explore, even going into Washington, it does something for you.
Yeah.
And I believe that's the same thing I want to do with even my family and generations after.
Yeah.
A lot of... I don't have biological children, but I have, you get the picture. I don't want to call them I don't want to put no titles on these things.
Yeah.
But what I want to do for my generation after my legacy is to create position where they could be exposed to whatever they want.
Yeah.
If you want to learn about Europe, you could actually go into our trust and go into Europe.
Yeah.
I want to create funding. I want to create a trust where any business you have, the trust will invest in. Mm-hmm. The trust will also invest in and give you the resources to manage. So I want to be able to build a trust that the trust will be able to invest and manage the business with you. You got to look at it. In my culture, my Haitian family, we have amazing hustlers.
Yeah.
But I'm I'm the businessman that's learning processes and system of how I got to where I am. So I want to be able to pass that down for generations after me. But I believe the exposure part is so important that I want to make sure in my legacy, I want you to go on a boat. Like we have a family boat.
Yeah.
That you
and
need
that's
to
unheard
go
of. That's unheard of in our
families,
in
our culture, especially.
that's unheard of.
You know, but I, you know, my responsibility and how I look at it, and I share with a lot of friends that I think that's the important piece right now. You know, a lot of us want to leave property and money and tools. Like I want to be able to leave tools and resources to give exposure, because I know I can't unsee things.
Yeah.
You know, I can't unsee 100,000. I can't unsee I can't unsee.
You know what happens when you get exposed though? You get frustrated. That's the point of not being able to unsee. You get frustrated by knowing that this exists.
And knowing how simple it is.
And knowing how simple it can be, yeah, for sure.
That, I promise you, once I realized I could charge a certain amount for consultation.
Yeah.
Like, what the? Like, people, that's a week salary back in, like,
that flip
to
get paid. So as creatives, we got paid for what we created, as in, like, you know, I held a video camera. You held a video camera, right?
Never, but I understand what you're saying.
Wait, I'm getting paid for my mind.
Let me tell you, I get paid well for my mind.
There's a flip that happens that you realize, because I struggled with this in my career. I struggled with the value of my worth being in me creating videos.
Ooh.
Versus the value of my worth being me. Jude Charles is in the room and he creates the value.
Let me tell you, that is because I know so many people that worked with me in the past couple of years, and I saw what they did after, I realized the value of me.
Yeah. So
once I realized the value of me, I never worry about somebody decide to fly. I know it's powerful when we come together and we're able to impact and bring value, you know, overall.
Yeah.
But once I realized the difference of what I bring to the table and knowing how I see things, the look, the style, the feeling, like once I understood the science of the right music for a video, oh my God. Only very few understand what that looked like. You know, like Matt, you know, one of our team members, he understand the music about very few. Like I don't got to say it so you know what I'm talking about with that science. I have never edited a full video, but I've been in editing for over 19 years, and I understand when I knew the importance of that music, of when it falls, the drops, the music audio, the intro, the emotion of that audio piece. Game changer. Yeah. But then when I started realizing, once again, it goes back to exposure. And when I first started billing people and charging for my mind, I was like, but I realized I saved them more money and they made more money off of my mind. I was like, oh. Yeah. And then it was like a repetitive thing. Like I was saying the same thing. I could give it out for free. Yeah. They won't even get it. But the moment they pay me for what I've been giving out for free, it doesn't stop. And I think, and I know for me, just to hearing your story and knowing what you've been through, I understand every dollar. Yeah. When you went to Washington, sat in that conference, is what you're paying for. Right. Like you could pay me and skip several steps. Not even, I don't want to use a word like skip steps, but gain more value faster. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because I truly believe that's what us creative, what we bring to the table is, we bring your vision into reality. But we're also helping you, you know, like with the power of content today, you're able to share your message. You're able to put out things, share the content. Now you're getting paid to tell your story. Right. Like you're getting paid to sit on a phone. I'm in another level right now because social media being paid, what's that called? Monetized.
Oh, an influencer? Yeah. Yeah.
You got to be kidding me. Yeah. It can't be this easy to make money on a platform. You're going to post on social media anyways.
You're already going to do it. Might as
so
well
now
get paid
you actually get paid for it? Yeah. Then I'm watching the amount of money that's being poured into content. Yeah. Like I feel like telling everybody in my family, you're only going to go to school for content creation. you have to understand what the future looks like.
Yeah.
And the future is being very clear with us. Content creation
Mm-hmm.
is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Telling your story is
knowing how to tell a story is like, because someone said it to me where it was almost like, it was one of those, damn, I wish I would have said that, because it's like stories are now assets. In the same way that we look at property as assets, the same way we
digital
look
asset.
at they're now digital assets. That means
And they
you
don't
get to
stop
make money
growing
from it. Yeah.
forever.
You were watching something. I cut you off. You were watching what?
So I was watching Dave Chappelle this morning, a clip that he did. I don't know I forget what show he was in. And I was just like watching him tell the story.
Oh yeah. He's a
Dave
masterful,
Chappelle is
masterful storyteller. Yeah.
I'm like, I just want to sit in a room where he could teach me. I just want to be around, just sit. How does he come up with this style of communication? The level and the skill, like he's a professional communicator.
What's interesting about that? So when I started public speaking, I only started this 3 years ago. Like being intentional about it. Comedians like Dave Chappelle have this system, process that before they ever do a big stage like a Madison Square Garden or whatever, or a Netflix special, they would try out their stories or their jokes on very small stages. So like a very small bar or something to perfect it, right? We're in 2022. I've done over 100 podcasts at this point as a guest. And I've taken that same strategy.
Special, but go ahead.
So I've taken that same strategy of perfecting the stories, right? Because you talk about Dave Chappelle, honestly, like for him, every word is intentional. Every pause is intentional. Every movement that he makes on stage is intentional. Because he's tried to master that craft.
What does it take to do that? To master a craft?
Stewardship. Being a good steward. There's a story in the Bible, I believe it's in Matthew, of the master who left. He was going on a trip and he left money with his servants, 3 servants. So one he gave 10, the other he gave 5, and the last one he gave 1. And 5, 2, and 1. So when he came back, he asked them what they did with the money. The one who had 5 had 10. The one who doubled it to 10. The one who had 2 doubled it to 4. But the one who had 1, he buried the money. He hid it.
I just heard this story.
And the master said to him, now the one that multiplied their money, he was like, great, I'm going to give you more money now to be responsible for. The one who only had 1 said, you lazy servant. Being a good steward means that you actually use what you have in your hands right now. You don't complain about it. You try to invest it and repurpose it, right? Mastering your craft, you have something that you're passionate about, that is a gift from God. One thing that's become very clear to me is the ability to tell stories, the ability to communicate stories is a gift from God. So it takes you slowing down like a Dave Chappelle to go to the small bars, even though he's got millions. There's no point in him going to a small hole in the wall. But because he goes in with a vision, a very clear vision that I'm going to master my craft, that's what it's repetitive. It's repetition. Kobe Bryant. There's a famous story with Kobe Bryant when he went to go play the Olympics. He called his trainer, one of the strength and conditioning trainers, at like 5 o'clock in the morning. And he said, hey, can you just help me with, I don't know what it was. It was some random workout that he wanted to do. Strength and conditioning coach came, helped him work out. But he left at 7 because the coach left at 7 because he was like, hey, we got, our actual team practice at 11. I want to make sure and go back and get some sleep. Comes back at 11. He asks Kobe, hey, what time did you leave this morning? I know you were still taking some shots. He was like, leave. He was like, I actually wanted to take 800 shots. No, I think he asked him, when time did you finish? He was like, finish what? And he was like, Kobe was like, well, I wanted to take 800 shots. So I'm just finishing up. I didn't finish. Mind you, this is 11 o'clock when they have the next team practice. Being a good steward is what it takes to master your craft, that you know you really want to get good at this one thing. This is a gift. But the only way to get better at that gift is you keep rehearsing over and over and over and over. The reason I've committed to doing so many podcasts and continue to do them is because there are stories that I tell that I'm crafting over and over. There's stories that I'm looking at. How do I get better at telling the stories? How do I pause? How do I? So I'll give you behind the scenes. When I tell my father's story, and no matter where I tell it, if I'm on stage or if I'm doing a podcast, there's one part of that story that I once slow down and then I lock in. And that's the part, you probably felt it, when my niece asked me, why did grandpa have to die?
I was in the back seat. I told you.
Right? I slow down, but no matter where I am, I find, especially if I'm on stage, I find one person in the audience and I just lock in and I repeat the question, why did grandpa have to die? Right? But that creates an emotion. All those things, though, is because I've practiced. That's it. That's all. That's the only way to get better is if you keep practicing. If you keep looking at how do people respond to it? Do they respond to it? Is this actually a good story? Right? Have I lost them? Are they eyes glazing over? Like you can tell. You can tell when you're telling someone a story and it's not hitting right. I'm just looking at how can I tell that story better?
Dude, I'm uncomfortable. Like, I can't wait to rewatch this when we're editing. I can like, oh, I'm taking that. And we're doing lunch sometime this week or next week on me. I was going to make it on you, but no. No, but I'm excited for you, brother. I'm excited for what you're going to impact the world with.
Thank you.
I don't know you giving up storytelling at some point. I don't know if it makes sense.
I'm not giving up storytelling. I'm giving up video production.
Video production. That's true. There's a difference.
There's a difference.
I love the fact that it's an art to you. It's an art form, you know, and you make me, I'm challenging myself this week. I'm going to sign up for like Toastmaster or something and really finding, because I know it's a gift for me, you know, what I do and how I do it is definitely gifted because I didn't go to school for this.
Yeah.
I've definitely paid for this and put in the hours. I'm over the 10,000 hour mark that people talk about. I'm well past that. But I love this. And I know I love sitting around with people I know that genuinely love what they do. Yeah. You know, you're not working. You're literally getting up to create. And that I'm
walking in purpose. That's for me, that's what it's always about. It's walking in purpose. That whole idea of leading and empowering entrepreneurs to have relentless courage. If I just one more person a day, that's it. That's all I'm looking for. One more person a day.
Then and you do it in so many different aspects. Like it's not just doing their video. It's giving out information, pouring into people, creating these, being part of these podcasts.
Yep.
I think living in that purpose. And another thing I want to finalize with this, because a lot of people get into different spaces and once they don't get there, they realize, they didn't make the money that they thought they were going to make. What made you really just keep on believing and just trusting the process? And, you know, that money is going to come with it. Because it doesn't sound like when I hear your story, money was your focus.
No. I don't know. Other than...
You could still say that was a good question.
It really is.
No, that's what I was going
really
for. That's all I'm going for at this point. And you I was waiting for you to say it, and you didn't say it.
It is.
I want you to say it was a good question.
It's a great question because I strongly believe that God had placed a vision in me that I could not give up. There were times I wanted to give up.
It's so easy.
There are still times I think about giving up.
But what does giving up look like even for you, though? Just, I'm done with this whole thing?
Entrepreneurship is hard. There's nobody that, I don't care who you are, how much money you make. Entrepreneurship is just a complete mind game that you
can't prepare for.
No. Nothing in this world can
It's not enough reps you could do to prepare for tomorrow in entrepreneurship.
No. And so that's what I mean, just completely like, so I burnt out in 2020. I woke up October 2020 paralyzed from the neck down. Could not move. Now, in 2020, I made the most amount of money I've ever made in 1 year, in one full year. But yet I was burnt out. So, like, when I say giving up, it's much easier to work a 9 to 5 or to work for someone else. It's much easier. Like, you're much more comfortable. And so that's what I mean by giving up. But I also know on the other side of that is, again, if I give up, am I being a good steward of the responsibility and the gift that God has given me? It's a challenge. It's a constant battle. Constant battle. But what matters to me more is living on purpose, walking in purpose, and knowing that, again, I'm a good steward of what God has given me. Like, perfecting my stories is because I know it'll be impactful to the person that hears it, right? And I want to create that impact, and I understand that my voice, that the stories that I've been exposed to, the things that I've gone through, it just will help inspire, empower someone else to keep going. May of 2022. I have all these small stories because we don't have time for the long stories, but May of 2022, I was working with a client in Delaware. 4 of us. It's my team with me. And we're filming with a client in the lobby. She was doing a conference. We're filming in the lobby of this conference center. I'm doing the interview. My other guys are filming. And then they go back to the conference center. I don't know what I was doing, but I walked in later. And my head of production, Jason, looks at me. He says, "We just got robbed." Now, we had walked into this conference center with 4 cameras, 10 lenses. There's a person that walked in the room and stole 2 cameras, 8 lenses. Mind you, this is a Thursday. It was a 3-day event, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, so it's a Thursday. We still got to finish this event. But we're wiped out more than half of the equipment. Now, it ends up being about $20,000 worth of equipment, but I am completely unnerved by this because in 16 years of being in video production, I've never even lost a microphone. But someone came in, and we found this out later. He had watched us for an hour. He sat in the room and watched us for an hour, took everything in 13 seconds. But he had targeted us, and it's like, how does this happen? $20,000 worth of equipment. To this day, we're recording this towards the end of 2022. We still haven't found him. Still don't know what happened. But I wanted to quit after that. Because, it's a hell of a gut punch. Now, did we have insurance? Yes, and all those things. But it's like, it's the violation. What's the point? More than anything, after burnout, I keep asking myself, what's the point? What's the point? What am I doing? Yeah, what's the point? If I walk into this interview with Beethoven, what's the point? For me, it just didn't feel worth it anymore. But I understand that story now becomes a part of my repertoire that I now get to tell someone else who might be thinking of quitting.
Goes back to the story every time.
Goes back to purpose.
The
story is a part of that purpose.
The story is a tool to constantly develop the purpose of why you're here and what you're doing.
Constantly refining that. It's the stories.
Where could they get that story?
DramaticDemonstration.com. It's the title of the book, Dramatic Demonstration.
So I've been watching it. I'm hoping that you could turn your head around so I could take it. And you can't find it in the next since 2020.
You want to get you want to purchase it because it's not even. It doesn't just come. It comes in a whole package. It's a whole experience. I believe storytelling is an experience as well, and so it comes in a whole package.
Pause 1 second. So you know why I'm looking at this, and I saw a couple of things that you post about it briefly, but just like, I see whatever Jews. I'm writing a book.
Okay.
And I always tell people I will not sell a book for $19.99.
Yeah.
I have to sell an experience.
Yeah.
And I love and of course I think I'm the first one. So that's what we do. We believe we're the one that came up with this whole thing.
Yeah.
And to watch your packaging, I love packaging.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that I love the look. I love the black. I wear black you're talking my talk. So just the quality, the look, the feel, and the packaging, what you're doing, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here watching me this interview means this conversation is so important to me because it constantly keeps on reminding me I'm in the right path.
You know that just happened to me. Black Professional Summit. I'm on
Where
this.
is that being held at? Also, I've never
Hard
even
Rock.
heard.
Hard Rock. That's the one.
Oh,
that
the
I
one
just,
that you.
yeah. That's the one I just went to. So
I heard that before, but
I'm sitting on this panel with 3 other people and so much more accomplished than I am. Degrees,
of course,
COO of major corporation.
But you know the key thing you said about that? You're in the same stage.
Oh, I didn't see it that way. When the moderator was reading off the bios, I'm like, oh gosh, don't read my bio.
Hurry up.
Because it's just like I don't hold a candle to these. At least in my mind, that's what I'm thinking, right? But what do I lean on? My stories. And by the end of it, the moderator specifically says, Jude, we're leaving this last question for you because I want you to bring it home. There's 3 other people in the room, much more. And it is not like, and I don't say that in a cocky way, like, of course, I didn't think that would happen. But I lean on, again, it goes back to storytelling. It goes back to, I know the gift that I have, regardless of it, when I walk in the room and I may not feel it, I lean on God. And I lean on knowing that He has literally the last 16 years been shaping. Like I was, you may have known me. A lot of people didn't know me for 13 years. I just did the work. I had my head down and I did the work. Many people didn't know I did Keisha's project. Or even did Steve Harvey's project at one point.
Never knew that.
Right? Because I had my head down doing the work. But after 13 years, it was a conscious decision to step outside of the shadows. And over, God keeps reminding me, you're right where you need to be. Right? And that's what happened to me. Like you said that, and it just reminded me, like, that literally just happened 3 or 4 days ago as we're recording this. Because I left that. So here's what happened. The moderator had me answer the last question. Of course, I dropped the mic and walked away. No, I handled it. But then one of my panelists, she comes to me. She was like, I need to have you on my podcast. And she was like, can you do it tomorrow? This was a Thursday. And she was like, can you do it tomorrow? And that Friday, I had 4 podcasts already lined up. I was like, I can't do it tomorrow. And she was like, well, can you do it in the next hour? We can have it set up. Let's do it in the next hour. Right. You see the face you just made? That's the face I made. But I realized she wasn't going to take no for an answer.
That's dope.
So I said, you know what? I can do it in the next hour. I was like, I really want to listen to Pinky Cole because Pinky Cole came up after us. And I was like, I really want to listen to Pinky Cole, but I'll do it as soon as this is over. She gave me the address, 15 minutes away from Hard Rock. And on the way there, I just, again, leaning on stories. I have a story bank journal. I have a digital version of it, right? I have the physical, but I have a digital as well. And I just opened that up and I was like, she gave me the topic. The topic was the stories we tell ourselves. And I just looked at, okay, what stories can I tell around this idea, the stories we tell ourselves? Again, went in the video interview, killed it, right?
So
but
let me tell you,
God reminded me.
Something's in my mind so on fire, but go ahead.
God reminded me you're right where you need to be. Right? So you say this conversation is doing it for you. This whole week this last week has done it from where God continues to remind you, you're right where you need to be. You're right where you need to be. So yeah, but it's these connections that you make. It's going to these conferences. It's going to be exposed that will show you you're right where you need to be. Sometimes it'll show you what you need to learn to get to the next step. But other times it'll also remind you, no, you don't need anything. You're right where you need to be right now.
I promise you, all last week and the past couple months, I've been getting clarity on your steps are ordered.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I trust the process so much. I know my steps are ordered. Like, when something happens, like, I already knew it was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to commit to the process.
Yeah.
And be okay whatever you like. I had a issue in business that my team don't really know last week that we had to deal with, and I dealt with it. You know, it was a big financial dealing that I wasn't prepared for, but I was. Mm-hmm. The moment that got taken away, 5 times activated.
Yeah,
I was like, what the fuck? But that chunk that I had to learn, change podcast space plus business model. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, shit, you got me again, God. Like, why you keep on tricking me like this? Like, and it's just trusting the process. But I want to put something in the universe, and it's now between us. It's not public yet. My
Yeah,
goal is
yeah,
to
yeah.
make it, take care of it before it get or edit this whole thing out. I really want to find out how we could build a partnership in creating a podcast on. Damn, I had the title when you said it. Your story is.
Oh, the most important, the most powerful.
It was something based on storytelling, and I don't know how it could come together. I don't know if it's telling other people's story or if it's a podcast of you telling your story, but in video form. Because I think people, I don't know yet. You said, and I just had it, but I know God will give it back to me.
Yeah.
But I have the tools.
Yeah.
And you have the tools.
Yeah.
But I truly believe your storytelling is going to open up doors that nothing else have ever opened for you, because it's an art form for you.
Yeah, no doubt.
I know people will sit and watch your storytelling, like, because I'm part of this interview, and I was watching it while I was having a conversation with you.
Yeah.
So if you're doing it or not, but I want to be part of it.
Listen, we'll make it happen. I
don't know. When I watch this, when we're editing it out, I'm gonna find out what it is, and I'm gonna speak with you about it. We're gonna have lunch on that meeting.
Yeah.
I truly believe, because I know where podcasts is clearly going, video podcasting especially, and I truly believe there's something about a piece that you said that locked in. I was like, this is a show. And I think you're the most important part of it because of your skill in storytelling. And I believe that will earn another capacity. Like, we can't even count.
Yeah.
Because we know where the plan is going. And just having it prepared, I can't unsee Gillian Waller $100 million deal. I say this all the time.
Yeah, I saw that. I
can't unsee it. How could you unsee it?
Yeah.
These brothers, 3 years, $100 million deal. And your storytelling hits different.
Yeah.
And
well, I appreciate that. I again, it's just continuing to be a good steward of it.
I can't wait to watch this again to find out what it was.
No, it's the Bible says your gift will make room for you, right? And you had asked me a question. I don't know if I ever answered it, but you asked me like, this wasn't always about money for me. It still isn't really, but I truly try to lean on. I lean on, if I do my part, God will do his part. Right? And I understand over and over. Did it come to you? Is that why you made that face? It came to you?
No, that was another one. I think I just created something else in my head, but keep going.
The more you master your craft is just, again, and I don't want to give off the impression that all of this is easy or anything like that, or it has been easy.
You haven't given me that at all.
It has been
You took a bus to Washington. I don't know what you're talking about. It was easy. Nobody believes it was easy. Jude, you're the only one that goes, you took a bus to watch. At that point, everybody knew this guy's crazy. But leave us out with how they can follow you, how to get back, to learn more about you.
Yeah.
Of course, we'll be doing something soon.
Yes.
But leave them with all that, please.
Best place to connect with me is on our website, judecharles.co. That's where you can find out everything. It's the book. I have a journal, Story Bank Journal. The other podcasts, if you want to listen to other podcasts that I've been featured on, judecharles.co. That houses everything.
Anything next that need to be prepared for?
The private equity company. I don't know when. I haven't created the plan as to when I'll start it. But so what Reginald F. Lewis did specifically was leveraged buyouts. He would buy companies and sell it, right? Buy companies, grow them, and sell it. I'm still learning that process, but that's what's next. I'll give you the bigger vision towards that. I would like to do leadership trainings around storytelling, right? The leveraged buyouts and running this private equity company is just a way to make money. But when I buy these companies, it's training up the leadership team, the executive team, with these leadership retreats.
Off camera, I can't wait to talk to you about something. But go ahead.
But so that's what's next. That's the big plan. That's what I'm going into next, that I'm preparing for. I'm still doing video production now. I have 2 big projects that's wrapping up this year, at the end of this year. But yeah, that's just what's next right now.
Well, my brother, I needed this. I'm sorry. I didn't care what they got, but I needed this conversation.
Yeah.
A lot more to come. I feel good. This gave me a lot, and hopefully, I know it gave it. Not even hopefully, I know you gave a big value. See you next time, brother.